Going into lockdown was extremely frustrating for many who enjoy the privilege of selling through physical sale yards around New Zealand. And level 2 saw us come out and be able to transact with social distancing and some protocols in place, but to revert back to that traditional method of selling. However, over that time of lockdown, innovation led the way in terms of trading stock online. This is livestock online. But this is seriously not a new thing, and has certainly, with a lot of behaviour of consumers in general, sometimes it's just that push and that shove that we've been waiting for, and what is going to be this new normal. Now, an independent marketplace is something that StockX has operated on for the past 5+ years, and the Managing Director of that, Jason Roebuck, joins us now from StockX. Jason, good evening from the wonderful Hawke's Bay. She's pretty tough times out there for your fellow countrymen.
Yeah, good evening, Sarah. Yep, Hawke's Bay obviously is probably a bit of the epicentre for drought in the North Island at the moment. It's not to say that other regions aren't doing it tough as well, but certainly it's been challenging for a lot of people here for a very long time now.
And that backlog that evolved because of COVID on top of that drought, you would have seen the explosion of interest in StockX as a trading platform from farmers who had no other way. What was it like going through lockdown for you as an online livestock trading platform?
Well, for us, Sarah, it was a pretty extraordinary period of time. Unprecedented is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but particularly with sale yards as a selling mechanism being taken out of play, and with MPI and government pushing everyone to look to online options for trading of their livestock. It certainly we had to deal with an incredible surge of interest from not just farmers but livestock agency businesses and meat processors as well, as to how our business, little as it is, can help with the innovation that we provide in terms of an independent digital livestock marketplace for all of New Zealand.
And the rise of these online livestock trading platforms, Jason, was that a surprise? Do you think that it all worked well? Will they stay around with us going into the future, or was it merely a reaction, do you think, to the current lockdown situation?
No, I think, Sarah, that people have been looking to what online can add in terms of value to sales channels for quite a long time now. And in my view, and certainly that I think of a lot of contemporaries in the industry, both across agency businesses, large-scale farming organisations, right down to private farming individuals, online as a sales mechanism and certainly a purchasing channel is something that's definitely here to stay for the long run. There's a lot of value that it creates for all the participants on both the buy side and the sell side. And while New Zealand may not have had the experience that overseas markets have had for as long as they've had them, I think we're pretty quick to adapt, and we're very quick to adopt. And I think, in my view, agency businesses, farmers themselves as agency clients, and farmers as buyers and sellers on their own account have seen the incredible value that online can provide for them.
Yeah, well, let's work through a couple of those. And we've been discussing, of course, New Zealand and farming innovations that have made our lives easier. And it was quite interesting, Jason. A lot of them straight away started listing all the apps that they use. And there's a huge push now to be farming more efficiently. How does something like StockX do that?
Well, efficiency is delivered through a number of different outcomes, isn't it? It depends on the context. But in terms of selling livestock, for the farmer, they're not having to bring the stock into their yards, organise the freight, get them to a sale yard for a sale day. So they can easily list their stock and put them in front of a bench of buyers across the country, effectively connect to your farming business or agency business that's set up on StockX. You're reaching a much more dynamic audience. And as a result of that, they're taking a lot of cost exposures out of their business. They're also setting some price expectations that they're comfortable to trade at. And so they're not selling at the sale yards where, if you use that as the comparison, there's an unknown value, but a known cost. to sell through that channel. And I think you'll find that most online trading platforms or mechanisms recognise that that is a core fundamental in terms of the value that they can create.
We've also noticed that, the great thing about animal welfare outcomes from not shifting stock around the country unnecessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Stock remain on farm until they're sold, and then they're moved only once. And, that's literally the shortest route, isn't it, between 2 points is direct from A to B.
But then in saying that, Jason, over this particular time, I mean, the old man's an absolute classic. He couldn't move any stock because no one was buying at the time, and there was a real lack of feed. Those sale yards have been the lifeblood of farming in tough times, to just say, I don't want to see them back. How are we going to get out of these peaks and troughs of this type of mentality of farming?
Yeah, peaks and troughs, have value for both sides, sellers and buyers at different times and in different circumstances. And I think that's where online selling and online marketplaces provide a really valuable alternative to those traditional sales channels, where you are taking yourself out of the confines of a regional market and you're putting yourself into a national market. And that ability to reach more buyers from more regions more easily, create one auction lot, one listing on one platform and sell them in front of the thousands of buyers that they may be available at the time, is a much better alternative, we think, that's going to establish over the short to medium term.
I've got an interesting guest lined up tomorrow, Kevin Ford, the new head of NATE, and biosecurity and the movement of stock is huge. A lot of Bovis's troubles came down to deals that weren't recorded very clearly as well. Jason, I mean, being able to trade through these platforms have got that element of traceability.
Yeah, there's certainly improvements that we can add to those national frameworks, and we've had early discussions with the likes of NATE and Osprey around how we can interface with them to make it easier for those compliance regimes to be delivered for the benefit of both the selling and purchasing farmer and for New Zealand as a whole.
And I mean, the biggest thing is it's really interesting. The old Sunday ring around is really all you've got to go by on terms of price, isn't it? But, this online trading platform is becoming a lot more transparent, especially interregional, about what options are available.
Yeah, so there's a lot of price point references that people can draw from in terms of market statistics for what sales volumes and values are being traded. And I think that's what more and more people are going to look for. And to go back to your earlier point about peaks and troughs in markets, a little bit more stability across the season is probably a good thing for everyone. But let's not forget that each region, has its variabilities, and each trading class of stock also has its variabilities. And those are the things that are the lifeblood of the trading community for livestock in New Zealand. So there's always going to be differences that are going to be of value to both buyers and sellers at different times. That's the vibrancy of markets, and that's what we're looking to provide as well.
We were just heard there before from Peter Whiteman in terms of people trying to swarm their way out of these wool contracts internationally. The transactional element of trading livestock in this country, I have been always so critical of, Jason, because you can sell a massive on-farm lamb sale higher in value than the house I've just recently bought in Lincoln, with very little sort of framework around the legalities of that. How secure are these transactions online?
So in terms of online transactions, we've put a lot of effort into how we establish a really, really robust sale and purchase contract. There's a huge amount of effort that we've put into that, but to make it, cut it down and make it simple, effectively, we have a standardized approach to the description of livestock as you go through and create an auction for sale on StockX. As a result of that, the seller is warranting that that's what they'll deliver to the buyer on the completion of a trade. We've never had any major defaults or any significant issues. Oftentimes you'll get some variances in the amount of head that are delivered, and that could be down to things like, they weren't fit for transport, or there might be some slight variations in the per kilogram average. But we're pretty tight on those types of things, and farmers and agents generally are really good at delivering what they said they will. In addition to that, on the way we complete our contracts, we've got two settlement mechanisms. One's called stock pay, which settles through our StockX trust account. So the buyer places the funds for the transaction on deposit within our trust account. The stock get delivered from the seller to the buyer, and we release the funds to the seller when we get notice from the buyer and the transport company that the tally, the weight, and so on are accurate and match the listing. The other mechanism is if you're trading through your agency business, if your agent is buying or selling on behalf for you, you can make use of their trading accounts as well, and they'll provide the settlement for you. So we've got a really robust legal construct around the sale and purchase agreements, one that we've seen be very, very successful, and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of livestock get traded, and it's never a problem.
And as we've been talking throughout tonight's show, Jason, what are some of those silver linings that you can see post-COVID for the primary sector in terms of our profitability moving forward and security over our farming businesses?
Well, look, I think that COVID and the changes to international dynamics around markets and where New Zealand fits within that is going to give our farming folk, quite a bit of vitality and the contribution they're going to make to New Zealand's economic recovery and our performance within that global context. So, again, they're probably going to be the heroes in the shining light, and that's something really exciting to be part of. For us as a small business that's starting out, I think that there's going to be some serious questions asked around how business is delivered over time, and online is only going to grow as a result of that as people look to take cost out of their business and increase value. And that can work as well for the farmer as it can for the agency business using platforms like StockX.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us out of Hawke's Bay. That's Managing Director of StockX, Jason Roebuck, one of the pioneers of online livestock trading, and we saw a rise of that over the lockdown. Of course, sale yards have reopened, clearing a lot of the backlog through a traditional sales method that we have become accustomed to. However, now online livestock trading has become a part of the fabric of our future businesses here in New Zealand for lots of reasons, as Jason just mentioned.
This is Sarah's Country.